The queen bee of the empire bees proves to be a tough opponent for the protagonist and his companion, who contemplate various strategies to take her down. They settle on a plan to pick up as many items as possible, while the bees are exhausted from their previous battle. The threesome watches with bated breath as the stag beetle and the bees enter what looks like a raid battle. In the end, the queen bee falls at the hands of the beetle, which is later slain by the protagonists. As they collect their loot, the protagonist observes that there's no shame in running away from danger, but he respects the beetle's decision to fight to the bitter end. The empire bees are left to ponder their defeat. Our protagonist observes a party of fighters attempting to challenge a boss in the game. Despite their high level in equipment, they lack necessary balance in their party, with no medic or magic caster. The fight with the crowned spiders turns out to be a disaster, as the spiders utilize their unique abilities to immobilize and kill off the players one by one. Though saddened by their demise, our protagonist gains valuable information about the boss fight and decides to level up some more before attempting it themselves. Sanraku, a skilled mercenary with dual-wielding capabilities, prepared for battle with the clown spiders, the boss of the game. With 200 mani to his name and optimized skill points, he was ready to face the challenge. However, entering the arena revealed that the battle was divided into phases, and the real battleground was located above in the tree's inner walls. Sanraku strategically instructed his NPC ally to stay alive on the staircase, while he navigated the spider webs to engage in battle. He discovered that aiming for their face resulted in critical hits and additional fall damage, which he used to his advantage. Despite the spiders' angry and agitated movements, Sanraku relied on his repel counter skill to cause them to lose balance and ultimately defeat them. His success left him with a twisted and victorious smile. Sanraku engages in a battle against the spiders and repeatedly knocks them off the arena. He utilizes a technique that allows weaker characters to fend off stronger opponents, which proves successful as the spiders become no match for him. Despite achieving victory, Sanraku feels unfulfilled, and the battle leaves a bad taste in his mouth. He discovers a fun fact about using a quick spin move and activates a skill to increase the height of his jumps. In the end, Sanraku pierces the spider's body, causing it to fall to its death, but he remains unsatisfied with the results of the boss battle. The protagonist is struggling to find excitement in the game, now that the guild she once enjoyed has lost its thrill and members. She seeks to take down a formidable enemy, even if it means bringing the entire game down with it. With the help of her loyal friend, she gathers the necessary items and plans her attack. Meanwhile, the protagonist's alter ego, Sanraku, navigates the game's dangerous terrain with his trusty rapier. Despite being targeted by other players, Sanraku remains confident in his skills. However, he can't afford to waste time on petty battles, as the protagonist's plans are quickly approaching. Will they be able to achieve their ultimate goal? Only time will tell. Sanraku arrived early at Count Phalanx's mansion and was welcomed by Pencil Warrior, who had taken over the place. Pencilton proposed a challenge to Sanraku and Katsu to defeat a powerful, unique monster, Gravekeeper Wezemon, after a big summer update in 2 weeks. Although their levels were low, Pencilton believed in their player skill. They agreed to the proposal, but Sanraku was suspicious of Pencilton's motives. Pencilton assured them that he had no intention of stealing the glory if they succeeded. Sanraku demanded Pencilton to reveal any hidden information. Despite Sanraku's warning of potential consequences, Pencilton smiled brightly, still hiding something. Ashurakai has a secret, unique monster boss named the Gravekeeper Wezemon. Its discovery last winter prompted the group to use it to measure the potential and strength of new members. Even encountering the monster grants XP to the player, and occupying its location can eliminate the need for further monster hunting. However, the task of concealing the boss and preventing random encounters can be daunting. To infiltrate the area, the group must overcome a unique quest X, From Far Away with Love, and defeat the humanoid boss-type monster. The battle will be difficult, as Gravekeeper Wezemon raises its stats while lowering those of the players and NPCs. Victory conditions aside from reducing the enemy's HP to 0 are possible, but uncertain. Despite the attack patterns of the boss, tactics change in battle, and Katsu and Pencilton have a plan in place for their single attempt against the monster. The protagonist was faced with a daunting challenge as they delved deeper into the full dive game. The boss they were up against had an arsenal of deadly attacks that could obliterate any player in an instant. From the lightning-filled clouds to the deadly sword strikes, avoiding these attacks seemed impossible. Even the boss's regular attacks were nearly impossible to scratch with their armor and resistances. The Gravekeeper also had a tactical-level special mechanism called Kirin that could merge with him and wipe out the entire area. The protagonist had to come up with a strategy to take down the Gravekeeper while fending off Kirin. The team of two would need to keep the boss's attacks at bay and stall Kirin while hoping that time was their ally. Their discussion led them to a realization that one of them was in a party with an NPC that could not be resurrected. As they prepared for their battle, the protagonist could not shake the feeling that there was more to be discovered. While jogging around the neighborhood, the protagonist, Hizutomi, muses on how much time he's been devoting to the Shanfro game lately. He knows that playing full dive games requires top physical condition, so he exercises regularly. In the convenience store, he spots a professional gamer on the cover of a magazine and an article about the upcoming Shangri-La Frontier summer update. As he picks up energy drinks, a girl named Saiga Rei recognizes him and chats about the game. She becomes excited when she learns he also plays Shanfro, but suddenly becomes flustered before running off. Hizutomi is left confused. Sega-san surprises the protagonist by playing video games instead of typical Yamato Nadeshiko-style activities. An urgent message interrupts their conversation, and the protagonist checks his email to find useless messages from Pencil Warrior. He logs back into the game and considers bringing Emwool to the upcoming fight with Gravekeeper Wezemon, but worries about the consequences. When he tells Emwool they may have to temporarily disband their party, Emwool becomes frantic and runs off to inform his father, Waisash. The protagonist confirms to Waisash that he intends to challenge the Gravekeeper and acknowledges his weakness, but is determined to win. He relies on Vorpal's soul and his experience from conquering Shit Chronicles Online to help him roleplay and find victory conditions for the fight. In a typical fantasy setting, bards are skilled in music, poetry, and magic to some extent, and can play many different roles. However, when telling a fantastic story, it's important to strike a balance between the truth and fiction to create a captivating tale without sounding too unrealistic. The protagonist's acquaintance has proposed a plan to take down the Gravekeeper, a revered figure among a group of murderers, and despite the odds being against them, the protagonist believes they can win. They vow to do their best and become stronger warriors to face any challenge. With some persuasion, they win the support of Waisash and his child to aid their cause. As Waisash shares information about the Gravekeeper, the protagonist listens intently, hoping to gain valuable insight to aid in their quest. Waisash shares his tragic tale of losing his wife and being stuck in time due to her inability to fully die. Sanraku seeks his advice on challenging the Gravekeeper, but Waisash can only offer his support if he deems Sanraku worthy. They arrive at a blacksmith shop where Waisash's daughter, Break, will create a Vorpal weapon for Sanraku to use against the Gravekeeper. Sanraku offers materials from a stag beetle to aid in creating the weapon. Waisash is a legendary forge master, recognized by both humans and bunnies alike. The furnace blazes, and the sound of hammers fills the air as preparation for the battle begins. Waisash explains that mastering blacksmithing isn't just about making strong weapons. It's about being able to read the weapon and uncover its true potential, attuning it to the future wielder. The group watches Waisash imbue the Vorpal knife with magic, and to Sanraku's surprise, he begins to sing. Waisash finishes the weapons and names them Rabbit Moon Upper Fang and Rabbit Moon Lower Fang. They transform into genuine-looking weapons, and Sanraku is impressed. Waisash tells Sanraku that she has the skill to use them, and the weapons fit her perfectly. Sanraku is grateful and puts the weapons into her inventory. The Rabbit Moon knives, Upper and Lower Fang, are powerful anti-blade swords that contain the Vorpal power within them. The Upper Fang deals increased damage instead of reducing the opponent's attack power upon critical hits, and this effect stacks multiple times. The Lower Fang, on the other hand, restores a small percentage of HP upon critical hits and also has a stacking effect. To equip these knives, one must have a combined STR, Dex, and Teak stat of 145. Unfortunately, the protagonist is still far from this requirement, resulting in despair. When meeting with friends to discuss their plans against the Gravekeeper, the protagonist shares valuable information about the monster's undead nature, leading to further insights. To avoid drawing attention, the group moves through back alleys and even receives a strange fishing rod from their ally Pencilton. As they head towards their destination, the protagonist's magical scarf, Emul, surprises their new companion Katsu with its talking abilities. The group enters the ancient ruins, marveling at the unique sci-fi atmosphere. They encounter a triangular UFO, prompting Katsu to show off his skills as a monk and defeat it with a crushing uppercut. His class focuses on physical enhancement, boosting his strength with a red aura. The group discusses optimal build for melee fighters, focusing on AGI, HP, and VIT. Despite the risk of dying, the allure of offense as the best defense prevails. Sanraku discusses his strategy with his team, revealing he focuses on both LCK and AGI. Katsu takes care of the enemies as they descend into an underground facility, while Sanraku and Emul contemplate the usefulness of maps. They finally find a hidden passage, but wonder how it was discovered. Katsu jumps down a hole and impatiently beckons the others to follow. Sanraku jumps down without waiting for Emul, who is still not mentally prepared. They shifted from falling to sliding halfway through the hole, emerging at a moderate speed. Katsu and the protagonist exchange some banter before discovering the hidden area, the underground lake of tears. While fishing, they encounter a sweetwater serpent, ready to fight. Using the newly acquired twin swords of the Empire Bee, the protagonist and Katsu manage to defeat the monster. The protagonist unveils a trick up their sleeve, piercing the serpent and commenting on Lucan's strong ability. In this game, some weapons and monsters can come with special effects that inflict powerful damage or debuffs. However, these effects cannot be gained through leveling up or consumables, and even PKers cannot abuse them without penalty. When attacking the same spot repeatedly, the effect becomes stronger. But it's not always the best strategy against certain enemies. The protagonists dodge attacks from a serpent with powerful effects and work together to defeat it, earning valuable skill points and leveling up. However, they discover they missed out on a crucial part of the tutorial, skill creation, which could have doubled their options for skills. The revelation hits hard and leaves the protagonist in a daze. The protagonist contemplates the difference between skills that evolve and those that simply level up. Thanks to Katsu's explanation, the protagonist discovers the existence of Skill Creator, allowing them to combine skills to create a stronger one. Despite feeling regretful for missing out on certain aspects of the game, the protagonist finds solace in small tasks and distractions. Together with Katsu and Emul, the three continue to fish and level up, with Emul proving to be helpful in battle. As they approach a full moon, the trio remain determined to obtain the unique Quest X. Katsu stared at the protagonist with sad eyes as they erect a tent for resting and saving. It was an expensive item, but priceless if used correctly. However, there were limitations and dangers to using it, making it safer to return to town for proper protection. As they explored a hidden area in the dungeon, they discovered a breathtaking flower field and a transparent woman named Setsuna of the distant past. She wore strange clothes resembling science fantasy and was an ancient one. Pencilton introduced the protagonist and their companions as trump cards against Gravekeeper Wazaemon, but Setsuna's eyes held both hope and sadness. Setsuna-san's gaze held more than just binary code, and despite her underlying hope, she struggled to come to terms with what she saw. Sanraku and Emil introduced themselves, while Oikatsu was teased as Idiot #1 and #2 plus an adorable mascot. Setsuna-san had uncommon knowledge of the group and pointed at Sanraku's curse marks, reminiscing on her past as she spoke. After prompting from Pencilton, she reveals how Wazaemon, her former lover, had become the Gravekeeper and was cursed in his duty to watch over her grave. They agree to help break the curse and train for the upcoming battle. However, Pencilton's true colors shine through as he unleashes a brutal attack on his comrades, leaving them weakened and questioning his true nature. The group finally gets through to Pencilton about the importance of leveling up in the game. Despite his initial hot-headedness and obsession with a certain NPC, they all manage to laugh it off. Pencilton even declares a battle against a tough, unique monster, and they spend the next 2 weeks training for it. The protagonist reflects on their own schedule, including trying out skill combining and farming materials. But their thoughts are interrupted by their sister's enthusiastic ramblings about a top model named Toa-sama, which leads the protagonist to reflect on the difference between living in the moment and eternal life. The protagonist logs into Berserker Passion Online to find a sparring partner for the Gravekeeper fight. He meets Dragonfly, a new player who knows about bugs in the game. They engage in a duel, and although Dragonfly puts up a good fight, the protagonist utilizes his unique fighting style and combination of bugs to emerge victorious. Despite not being interested in fighting players, the protagonist agrees to another round out of duty as a gaming senpai. He finds it enjoyable playing against someone who is honestly trying to improve. In an intense battle, the protagonist managed to deflect an attack from his opponent and strike him where he least expected it. The opponent, using his momentum, came at him again. The protagonist threw punches relentlessly, always being on the offensive, not giving his opponent a chance to fight back. Ultimately, the opponent won the first round after discovering a bug that allowed him to pile up special attacks. They consult about the bug, and the protagonist advises the opponent to name the bug in a meaningful way. The protagonist wins the second round and helps his opponent come up with a cool-sounding name for the bug. After logging out, the protagonist is filled with a sense of duty done, but wonders what his true purpose in the game is. Sanraku ventures to the Skill Garden establishment to combine his skills, hoping to organize and enhance them after power leveling. His status and equipment have improved, but his defense is still paper-thin. At the shop, he meets Emil's twin sisters and is greeted by the bunny behind the counter, Elk. She informs him that it is best to combine skills with high levels to obtain new skills with even higher levels. Sanraku contemplates waiting until his skills hit the max level, but decides to combine them anyway and see what happens. Sanraku, a mercenary with impressive stats and a variety of skills, is pleased with his inventory organization. He muses about combining skills and wonders how the system works. He takes note of his skills, including Infight, Hand of Fortune, and Hunger Wolf. He also considers purchasing a secret skill from rabbits, but ultimately declines due to the exorbitant prices. They continued with their daily routine of farming and preparing for the fight against the Gravekeeper. The appointed time was approaching, and they gathered at the NPC bar, Snake's Apple, a secret spot known only to experienced players. They discussed their strategy, with Sanraku in charge of fighting the Gravekeeper, and Katsu taking on the tactical warhorse, Kirin. Pencilton reminded Sanraku of the importance of not getting hit by the boss's skills, and potentially becoming their meat shield. Despite the odds, they remained composed and determined to face the challenge. Before the big battle begins, our protagonist decides to catch some sleep, but first he receives a message via a carrier falcon named Saiga Zero. The message invites him to check out a major update happening later that day, but he declines due to his lack of availability. He also asks Saigazero for advice on how to deal with high-speed attacks, which is responded to with a lengthy and detailed reply. After the exchange, our protagonist takes a stroll through the town of Rabbits, encountering Emul, who becomes jealous of the falcon and claims her place on the protagonist's back. Their argument ends with a painful tussle. Despite the pain, our protagonist is amused by the fantastic and unrealistic experiences he's able to have in the game. Sanraku declares Emul-san an apex of Vorpal Bunny, but cannot let him sit on his head and travels to Bunny Court to meet Waisash. After a brief conversation, Waisash warns Sanraku not to forget about the Vorpal soul. Sanraku logs out to rest and prepares for the battle with Gravekeeper Wezemon. He drinks an extra strong energy drink and ingests vitamins, protein cookies, and joins Katsu. Emul gives Sanraku a talisman, and they head to Hidden Garden. They discuss a bug in crap, but immediately regret their words when they come across a patch of crimson spider camellias. They waited for Pencilton, the mastermind behind the whole operation. Suddenly, there was a commotion from deep inside the cave. Pencilton apologized for the delay, citing trusted members' thick-headedness. The party accepted his invitation to form a group and entered a special distortion. They emerged to find Setsuna, an NPC bound to the cherry tree. Pencilton rushed into the battle arena, the others following. Meanwhile, the Ashurakai Guild faced an all-out attack, leaving the guild nearly destroyed. Allslot suspected there was a mole, and her suspicions turned to Pencilton. When she arrived at the Hidden Garden, she discovered her conclusions were correct and screamed about her sister's betrayal. The boss arena loaded up, revealing a barren landscape with a dead tree that was miraculously full of life. As they approached, the group noticed a simple grave marker and a rusted mechanical samurai standing guard. The tension grew as they prepared to fight the unique monster. Despite their preparations, the Gravekeeper Wezemon proved to be a formidable opponent, with insta-kill moves and powerful attacks. The group struggled to find a way to inflict damage and avoid being killed, relying on useful items like the Tears of Rebirth to stay alive. After a grueling battle, they emerged victorious, amazed at their own abilities and grateful for their teamwork. Pencilton had made sure that everyone had the necessary equipment to survive the battle against the powerful Gravekeeper. They had 4 tears and 27 full cure potions each, as well as copies of the God of Life item. Despite their efforts, avoiding Gravekeeper's attacks was becoming increasingly challenging. The protagonists switched to the swamp daggers that Blacksmith Break had enhanced for them, hoping it would increase their damage. With Katsu's help, they managed to evade another attack. But when the thunderclouds filled the arena, they were unable to avoid the damage and could only hope to survive the onslaught. The Gravekeeper's attacks could easily land a fatal blow, causing the protagonist to attempt dangerous acrobatic movements to avoid them. Pencilton was still preparing something, but the protagonist feared that they wouldn't survive long enough for it to make any difference. When the tactical warhorse Kirin was summoned, they realized it was a truck with legs. The Gravekeeper continued its unrelenting attacks, and the protagonist was worried about Katsu's safety. Katsu and the protagonist, Sanraku, are confronted with a daunting machine in the arena that resembles a quadrupedal tank. Katsu uses his unique climbing skill to mount the machine, while Sanraku witnesses the spectacle of Katsu's rodeo. Meanwhile, Pencilton, a level 99 player, prepares to use a unique item called the Scales of Consideration, which he hopes will give them an advantage in battle. In the fight against the Gravekeeper, Sanraku uses his signature attacking technique and manages to disarm the boss of his sword. The Uber bosses are not to be underestimated, as the protagonist soon realizes. Despite activating his skatefoot and best step abilities, he is unable to avoid the boss's attacks and faces potential death. The Gravekeeper shifts his focus, and the protagonist tries to redirect his attention back to himself. Meanwhile, Katsu struggles to hang on to the Kirin and suffers small amounts of damage as he bounces around on the horse. Penselton does his best to revive them, but the pressure of timing his revivals perfectly is taking its toll. Katsu, a strategic gamer, is frustrated by their lack of information on the opponent. However, in the midst of being thrown around, he realizes that standing up may help him avoid the wild swings of the horse. It has been almost 20 minutes since they began fighting Gravekeeper Wesemon. A loud strike echoes through the air, but it's not clear where it came from. The ground shakes, and the source appears to be causing both the sound and tremors. Gravekeeper falls to his knees, and Penselton warns that things are about to get dangerous. The third phase of the fight is uncharted territory for them, but Penselton has a secret strategy planned for the Gravekeeper's area of effect attack. The team is nervous as they prepare for battle. Penselton throws holy water at Gravekeeper, resulting in damage. The figure beneath the machine warrior's armor rises up, covered in blue flames. The team is worried as they realize they may not be able to beat both opponents on their own. Sanraku-kun offers help to the team. Together, they face the Gravekeeper. It was a war of attrition, a method that prioritized the story rather than gameplay. But as the battle wore on, the protagonist put on his battle helmet, Shiko. With this enhanced durability, he was able to parry and strike. And when the Gravekeeper revealed his self-destruct move, the protagonist countered with his own trump card, his secret sword art Mirror Moon. With this technique, he was able to score a critical hit and redirect the Gravekeeper's aggro. The battle was intense, with the tension reaching its climax as the protagonist landed an oppressive kick on the Gravekeeper's gut. The Gravekeeper Wesemon is a unique boss with invulnerability, thanks to his hyper armor. The players must cause him to use his self-destruct move in hopes of him destroying his own armor. Once that is achieved, the player's chances of winning increase. Penselton has a rare medicine called Evil Force that provides immense power for 15 minutes, but the downside is losing 30 levels once the effect ends. The players, Katsu and Penselton, take it and turn into monsters in human clothing, attacking the Gravekeeper's exposed knee joint. Penselton's Spear of Sunshine inflicts internal damage, but the Gravekeeper fights back with missiles and a concentrated heat blast. Penselton sacrifices himself and is revived thanks to an item used by Katsu. The battle truly begins now. Penselton and Katsu struggled to fight the powerful Gravekeeper. Penselton used magic scrolls with lightning spells, while Katsu used his rope skill to trip up the boss. They realized they needed a new strategy and decided to split their roles between attacking and distracting the boss. The protagonist also joined the fight with their new helmet and weapons, but knew they couldn't defeat the boss alone. As they fought, the protagonist activated various skills and techniques to avoid and attack the boss, but the battle seemed endless. Suddenly, the Gravekeeper spoke in a genuine voice, mentioning someone named Alice and cryptic clues about the frontier. The boss then announced their second plan, and an ominous warning siren sounded. The protagonist had a dreadful feeling that something terrible was about to happen. When it comes to creating and adjusting boss-type enemies, there's one thing you should absolutely not do: make the boss unbeatable. In order to keep the game balanced, both sides must be taken into consideration. To make the boss challenging without breaking the game, the author suggests setting limitations, such as forcing the boss to stop doing certain attacks by hitting a specific part of its body, using a specific event gimmick or item, or even setting a time limit. The protagonist finds himself facing a Gravekeeper Wesemon with a new skill that allowed him to cast all of his other skills and techniques with no cost or recast time for the duration of 30 seconds. The barrage of constant attacks made it hard for the protagonist to regen his stamina, and he struggled to find an opening to attack properly. The Gravekeeper then unleashed a new technique called Eruption, which caused a tremendous amount of heat to generate and crawl towards the protagonist under the ground. The protagonist managed to avoid this attack, but the Gravekeeper wasn't done yet. He combined two attacks to create High Blizzard, an insta-kill attack that the protagonist barely managed to avoid. As the battle rages on, the protagonist ponders what triggers the Gravekeeper's attacks and how much time has already passed. Despite the intense difficulty of the fight, the protagonist refuses to give up and continues to push forward. The protagonist struggles to come up with a plan as his enemy's boosted attacks and new patterns pose a serious threat. However, using an item from his inventory, he attempts to counter-attack with his sword, unsuccessfully. Suddenly, a self-resuscitation item is thrown, and the protagonist is revived just in time to avoid certain death. The enemy's sword proves to be too much for the protagonist, as it destroys his equipment with a single strike. Worse yet, the enemy possesses a barrier that prevents any attack from connecting. Despite possessing healing items, the protagonist is unsure if he can survive the coming battle as the enemy begins to prepare for their next attack. In a battle against the Gravekeeper, Pencilton and Katsu discuss the importance of distinguishing the game world from reality. Despite the dangerous situation, they recognize the need to be aware of their limitations in the game. Katsu uses ropes made from water serpent materials to control the armored horse, Kirin. By manipulating its movements, he and Pencilton are able to defeat it. However, even with Pencilton's powerful spear, their attacks are not effective until he uses a special item to penetrate the armor at its thickest point. Katsu and Pencilton work together to keep the Gravekeeper from standing up, allowing Pencilton to deliver the final blow. Despite the battle's difficulty, their teamwork and strategic thinking lead them to victory. The team faces a tough battle against Gravekeeper, but they have noticed some indicators in his moveset that may help them. The Dragonfire Pillar has a lag time, giving them a chance to dodge. The Grand Slash has a straight trajectory, making it easy to evade if they have enough space. Avoiding the Thundercloud is a challenge, especially since Gravekeeper tracks their every move. The team must maintain a safe distance and avoid his attacks while coming up with countermeasures. Parrying is difficult and not always effective, so evasion and avoidance are their best bet. The team must survive the battle, as destroying the sword or the main body is not possible. With only 3 more things to think of, the team wonders if they can withstand 2 more minutes. The protagonist wields both the Upper Fang and Lower Fang as their strongest weapons. With the Gravekeeper momentarily locked in place by the Dragonfire Pillar, they charge and strike with their dagger. Dodging the Gravekeeper's Thundercloud skill, they prepare a reviving item and anticipate an endurance battle. Seitan Taisei gives the Gravekeeper an advantage for 30 seconds, but the protagonist is undaunted. Their self-resuscitation complete, they engage the Gravekeeper with bare hands. Meanwhile, Pencilton and Katsu battle Kirin, dodging its laser attacks. Pencilton takes on the challenge of defeating Kirin alone and gives Katsu a task involving rope. Katsu provides the most durable rope left in their inventory. Katsu hands over his most durable item to Pencilton, who laments the lost opportunity for profit. With their last offensive about to begin, Pencilton uses the powerful skill Shadow Wedge, while Katsu wields a weapon infused with super rare materials. They both strike the Kirin, with Pencilton's spear piercing its laser turret and Katsu's attack boosting its penetration power. The armor finally falls, and Sanraku is still fighting, but running away. Pencilton asks how much longer, and Sanraku replies 20 more seconds. They switch and vow to finish the job. Using the Moonwater Mirror skill, the protagonist saves his companions and readies himself for the final showdown against Weserman. After enduring a long battle, he realizes his mistake and fails to activate a skill, putting him in a dangerous situation. However, his companions distract Weserman, and he remembers a new update that allows him to use a particular move. Using his sword, Crescent Moon, he deals a critical blow to Weserman and emerges victorious. Exhausted but triumphant, the protagonist is commended for his brilliant strategy. The Gravekeeper should be drawing his sword, yet he stands motionless, fixated on the protagonist. Even in the face of the ultimate weapon, the Tensei, the protagonist's skillful dodging earns applause. However, any semblance of celebration is short-lived as the quest scenario continues mercilessly. Wazamon, shattered and emitting black smoke, collapses, completing his duty. The quest's completion triggers a world reset and the appearance of a spectral woman, Setsuna, who commends the protagonists and grants them secrets to the world's genesis. In her last moments, Setsuna confesses her love to the protagonist, exhilarating him. The quest ends with rewards of titles, techniques, and items. A job well done. The latest Shangri-La Frontier update was immense, and the players were buzzing with excitement. Suddenly, bells rang out, marking an announcement from the administrators. To everyone's surprise, news of the unique monster gravekeeper Weserman's subjugation was revealed. Only 3 players, including Arthur Penselton, had managed to defeat the beast. The news spread like wildfire, with guilds and players alike clamoring for more information. The guild library busily researched where the remaining unique monsters might be found, while the Black Wolves discussed the dangerous potential of Arthur Penselton. Meanwhile, Sega Zero was focused on the curious role that Sanraku had played in the subjugation. Sega Zero notices something no one else can see, and suddenly disappears, exhibiting a carnivorous smile that makes the clan members suspicious. She's actually gone to help her sister's friend, Sanraku. Meanwhile, Allslot is dumbfounded when he learns that Sanraku, who he considers a newbie, defeated the gravekeeper Weserman. He activates his special skill to attack Sanraku and his 2 companions, but fails to notice a magic circle appearing under Sanraku's feet. Suddenly, a player wearing full platinum armor appears, rescuing Sanraku from Allslot's attack. 50 seconds later, the remnants of Ashura Kai are completely obliterated, showcasing the unrelenting power of the walking cannon, Apocalypse. Allslot and other Ashura Kai members disappeared in seconds, leaving behind rare items. Penselton was pleased despite losing his brother. It was all part of their plan to defeat the remains of Ashura Kai. Penselton had Sega Zero come to the rescue and defeat Allslot. Penselton then asked Sega Zero to kill him too, offering her all his items. Sega Zero accepted and drew her unique weapon, Antinomy. Penselton and Sega Zero engaged in battle, with Sega Zero demonstrating her immense skill and power. Penselton also showed his own abilities, using spells and changing the color of his sword. Katsu and the protagonist were amazed by the intense battle that ensued. Once Penselton transformed his sword, it resembled a nailed bat due to the number of nails and thorns on it. He attacked Sega Zero with various skills, yet none of them were effective against her black substance-covered armor. Sega Zero used her Requiem for Existence skill and sliced off Penselton's arm. Desperate, he swung his severed arm blade at Sega Zero, but ultimately failed. Katsu and the protagonist were startled by her skills. After Sega Zero disappeared, she left behind a strange sword that they were unsure what to do with. The protagonist and Katsu parted ways to go home,